because everything left.
He's kind of skewed the restaurant.
Yikes.
Okay.
Yikes.
This is not going to be a long meeting.
Oh,
Then we gotta come back to
does
it.
this evil thing have to be on?
And there are two.
Robin, I didn't have your
What's
your-
Do you know your password?
Same one, planning 18.
What, 2016?
No, 18.
Is it 2018
No,
or 18?
18. I'll be back.
John,
Oh, he's off.
you just,
He's in Florida. His annual
18.
Yes, please.
come
sojourn,
back.
February.
I'm good. Dennis is in Tortola.
Yeah?
Lucky dog.
Patty, do I sign page 25?
Yes, thank you.
You going away again?
I'm going to Morocco.
Where?
Morocco.
Should be fascinating.
I don't think I said that when I came in.
Yeah, North Africa, Casablanca,
They'll try and steal it.
I could pay.
I've got different partners, and I've moved down. I don't know if I can handle this.
They'll show up at the meeting.
It's okay, it's a short agenda, so
I know.
we'll have time to worry about it.
Does that page number appear by itself? Oh, it's up at the top?
Yeah, it should be at the top.
This
Men's
little,
kind of clothes are kind of interesting. They have not Easter.
If you tap that little tab, it'll bring the screen up that says
Which
go
little
to.
tab?
The page tab.
Oh,
the little dots.
oh, okay, go to page,
see that
oh, say, it
one?
says
Oh,
go
yeah.
to page. Okay,
It says go to
Oh,
page.
cool.
yeah, good. And then
And I'll give
You'll
you
have
the
the
page
page.
number.
oh, we have paper, too. Oh, we have real paper.
Welcome to the Southampton Town Planning Board regular meeting for January 10th, 2019, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
I ask the secretary to call the roll.
Chairman Finnerty is absent, Vice Chair Blaney.
Present.
Secretary is here, Board Member LaFaro.
Present?
Board Member Zuccarelli is absent. Board Member Long.
Present?
Board Member Burke.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Please join us for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, I left.
What have we got first?
Minutes.
Are there any minutes we need to accept?
Yes, we have the minutes from October 11th of 2018.
Page number. Motion?
Motion, accept these minutes.
Second?
Second. 4, 5 in favor. No, 6 in favor. One.
Five.
What do we have?
Five.
John's missing.
John's missing, yeah.
Oh, and Dennis is missing too, that's right. He's not supposed to be gone. We miss him, even when he's not here having a good vacation. So that's 6-1.
Five.
Exactly,
5-0.
just seeing if you're on top of the seat. 5-0.
Who's up first?
I've got 2, 3, and 4. So number 2, Old Stables at Spionk.
Which is page 8.
There should be a map and an aerial there. Can you just let me know?
We have hard copies, too, so.
I'll print. You guys see it?
Yep.
Yep.
So this is a subdivision property on North Phillips Avenue. It's in the CR 40 zoning district. We actually did a pre-application for this project a couple of years ago, but it has since expired, so they resubmitted an application. The property has a couple of structures on there, residence and some other accessory structures. The proposal is for density incentive plan. The project has a yield of 6 lots. They're doing a density incentive to get 50% more to do a total of 9 lots, 3 of which would be workforce housing units. And they've actually, the plan that they submitted that you guys see is actually the plan that was revised per our first pre-app report. So this plan actually has some of the changes that we previously recommended. But at this point, we would deem the pre-app complete and schedule the hearing for February 14th.
Motion. Bill Keith, second.
Second?
Second by Jackie, all in favor?
Aye.
5, 2.
2 absent.
Number 3, 91 Priscilla Avenue.
And that's page 11 on your laptops.
This is a property in Flanders on Priscilla Avenue in the R15 zoning district. As you can see from the map, they're looking to do a 2-lot subdivision, requires variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. They're looking to recreate 2 lots that were there previously. If you look at the aerial photograph, you'll see the lots in this neighborhood are actually the size of the 2 here as they've split. This property obviously merged at some point. I'm looking to,
It was 3 lots that merged?
it was 2 lots actually
2.
merged, and they're looking to recreate them.
They're going
It
to
is-
separate them down the middle, this long way.
Yeah,
Skinny rectangles.
skinny rectangles, it makes it, they're consistent with the other lots, so it probably makes sense. And this one's also going to be deemed complete and scheduled for February 14th.
Motion.
Motion?
Motion by Robin. Second by Phil, all in favor? 5 and 2.
And then right down the road a little bit, number 4, 148 Priscilla Avenue. Tell me.
Same street,
Yeah,
huh?
it's right after this, so it's
Yeah, so that's
Same
page
Yeah, you're-
14.
This is, let me just, so it's on Priscilla Avenue. This property is actually split zoned R15 and R60. It's one property. They're looking to do 2 lots. One is a flag lot in the back, and then one in the front. There's an existing residence there. This also would require relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
So the lot in the back is half R15 and R,
Yeah, I mean, they're showing it as a 15,000 square foot lot, but I believe a portion of that property is in the R60 zoning district. So I don't know exactly how that
how do
works
we
with
handle
the,
that?
yeah, with the zoning board, it's a good
They get the
question.
variance from the zoning board.
Well, yeah, this does require relief from the zoning board, but the extent of the relief, that's a good question,
Yeah.
Jackie. As I advised the applicant, what they're doing in this case is they're going through the pre-app so we could do a report that we could serve as a ZBA. It's actually, and we'll address this issue about the relief, but we'll also deem this complete and scheduled for February 14th.
Motion. Motion by Phil, second by
Second?
busy St.
Jackie.
Valentine's Day.
all in favor. 5 in favor, 2 absent.
That's all I have for you guys today.
Tonight, though.
Thank you.
Oh,
So-
thank you.
Until next time.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Next victim?
Number 5.
That's to number 5. Handle 2 Jackie's first, and we'll go to mine.
Page 17 on your laptop?
It's Michelle Kirschbaum, 2-lot subdivision. And there should be a map attached to your agenda.
There
There
is.
is.
There is. All right, this was received back on December 5th. 2 lots within the R80 zoning district on Phillips Creek on the south side of Sunset Avenue at 44 Sunset in East Quogue. Pre-app is 2 oversized lots with 2 existing residents. I've been through the map, it looks fairly complete. They're missing a couple,
There are 2 houses on it,
2 houses already, yeah.
and there's one that we have another application for them right down the road, I think.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it looks substantially complete. They're missing a couple outstanding items just to show their septic system. There was an older map that does show 3 lots, because they do have essentially the yield for 3. I don't know if that's something the board would like to see at the public hearing maybe, but we're just looking at, to deem it complete and set the hearing at this time.
I mean,
Even
I-
though it's missing stuff.
Yeah, nothing substantial, just a couple minor mapping issues. Enough to do a review.
Well, but you should probably tell the applicant to come prepared to
Absolutely.
discuss all of the permutations, even the old 3 lot.
Absolutely, and I have Joe here if Joe wants to speak to it.
Where is the second house?
They're right next to each other. There's one towards the front of the lot. I can show you. I have a
I
map.
can see it's here, right? This one?
There's one,
There's two, you can
So
see
that's-
one, 2 houses, looks like.
Here. This is the residence and this is the residence.
And then how does the, what I'm looking at to the right, how do they get there? Is that from the same,
Currently, it's from the same driveway. I know what you're talking about, but they will have their own separate access. That's what they're proposing on the map.
Off Sunset Avenue?
They're both street fronting.
page 18.
They
Oh, so there's separate.
They now
driveway
come
that
in
way.
from this one driveway. There will be a separate driveway for this lot,
Ah.
or whatever the board requires. If
and
the
where's
board
the
wants-
third lot going? Where did-
They're not, the
No,
applicant
that's
isn't proposing a third lot, but there's an old pre-application that showed a third lot here. It would just be difficult to do another lot here, just because the wetlands do come all the way this way.
And you have some topography there too, yeah?
Yeah, these are the wetland setback lines, and the
Oh.
topo's here. It's pretty flat.
So what is that in front, an old tennis court or something?
That's the tennis court in front, which
Is
they
it-
got a variance for.
Is it still being used, Joe?
My understanding is it
Because that's where the driveway's going to go, right?
is. No, there's actually room between the tennis court and the proposed property line. I mean, there's,
Was that the
Oh, okay.
Ortman, Jack Ortman's property?
yes,
Okay. It's all
So this
clear
is-
now.
there's plenty of room to get a driveway into that area. I also brought copies of the previous map that showed 3 lots on the property.
So that's been withdrawn.
That's from
It's from
2002.
2002, yeah. They-
It's gone.
Yes,
It's gone.
but at least it demonstrates that 3 lots would have been possible on the property, and they're only asking for 2.
Better. What is the traffic on Sunset Avenue? I mean, do we want another curb cut?
It's not bad.
Or
pretty-
would we want a,
It's big
I don't see
residential
that it's
lots.
very substantial, not terribly familiar with the road, but
what do you think, Joe?
I don't think having an additional curb cut on Sunset would be a hardship or create any traffic issues. Sight distance is fine through that area.
Looks like there's 3 curb cuts right across the street from it.
Yes, literally.
Which,
Yeah,
and this is all stuff that can be addressed through.
Through site
hearing
plan.
and
Yeah.
At the, in the pre-application report also,
Right.
when it goes out to referral.
but that's something to take into consideration.
Definitely.
Particularly if, perhaps we might consider a one driveway with 50-foot common access and then,
Okay?
Yeah. You definitely keep it in mind. Anybody else have any questions?
Who gets the tennis court?
The tennis court will be on lot 1, that's where it's shown. This is just going right down the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
so they'll be back to put in a tennis court on the other lot.
Maybe.
There's a big space back there.
Yeah, that's what it is, okay. So, what are we doing, setting a public hearing?
Deeming complete and setting a public hearing for February 28th.
Have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by Phil. All in favor? 5 in favor, 2 absent.
And then on to number 7, Sternberg. That's another one
Oh,
of
that's
Jackie's.
Jackie's, okay.
They're just asking for an extension of the deadline for the submission of for the adoption of the pre-application report. I guess the applicant is missing some outline items. They need some topography shown on the map, but do an extension, I guess, to the next meeting, to the 24th.
First extension.
So,
Why don't
yeah.
we- David Gilmartin for the applicant, let's do 30 days because we're
Let's do
still
30.
waiting. to
That's
get
fine,
some
Dave.
topo information.
Yeah.
Joe's on this one also, so he said we should be good in 30 days.
If that's good for
So
the
what
board.
date is that?
30 days will be the February meeting. It'll be the 14th.
Feb
February
14.
14th, yep.
We'll be here, we'll be out of town.
What?
No, I'll be in the hospital.
Oh,
Any other items interested
Okay,
in the
so
board?
Thank you.
Anybody else? So, yeah, so just an extension to February 14th.
Okay,
Okay.
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Phil, second by Gloria. We are extended.
Number 9, that is mine, Christopher Mead.
number 8.
So number 8, sorry, yes, that's number 8.
Page 29.
This is an extension also. If you're familiar with the construction permit in Wheaton Bay Estates, be their second extension for signature. They're still working out their fencing issues. If you remember, they had an ag fence up that was encroached onto some neighboring property. It wasn't laid out in the right
Oh,
place, and
yes,
they're still
right.
working out the details and getting it done. So they're requesting another 90-day extension. And that'll bring us to April 22nd.
And it's just fencing.
Fencing, yeah, and there are some requirements from the town engineer that they're working to address too, trying to get everything together.
Well, you might tell them, I, for one, would be hard pressed to give them a third extension.
Absolutely.
For fencing.
I will let it be known.
So we have one extension, what, 60 days, that's.
This is a 90-day
I'll
extension.
give it 90. okay.
Yeah, to April 22nd.
Motion.
Motion by Phil,
Second.
second by Robin. 5 in favor, 2 absent. We've passed.
Number 12 is next.
Page 37.
I have paper on this one, guys, if you want to see it also. Men's Fential, this is for a sign. Site plan. Should be in there, though.
It is
The wall sign?
Wall sign, yes.
on the top of the peak there.
Correct. This was approved, was a change of use and site plan that was approved back on June 28th. It's for a 120-inch by 22-inch wall sign, finished in white. It's going to be a wood-like appearance, has some nice trim around the outside. I do have paint chips here, and the color should be shown on the detail plan.
And you need to get PMS colors from them, not
Sure.
paint chips.
Okay,
Yep.
I can get those. It did go to the ARB on December 18th. They saw no issue with it, and I'm recommending the sign gets approved just with a couple conditions. Currently, if you see on the building elevation, there's a flat roof that's in the front with like
Yeah.
a white piece of trim. They currently have Nappy Plumbing written there. So we're just asking them to remove that before the new sign goes up.
Right.
And there's also some lettering that's on the windows, and we're just asking that that's code compliant because there's a certain percentage that can be covered on windows in order for it not to be considered an additional wall sign.
What is that?
I think it's 20%.
20% of the window cannot,
Each has.
Can be.
Can be covered, I believe.
no more than 20.
Yeah, but I can verify.
Is there any lighting here? or-
Yeah, there's gooseneck lighting that comes down that's going to be shielded. That's shown on there.
Okay, but there's no ambient, nothing coming up from
No, it's,
down
the goosenecks come off the top. and
top?
they're
No, I'm
shielded,
just
yeah.
saying, but there's nothing coming,
No.
anything else? Okay,
Nope. And that's.
Okay,
okay,
Oh, yeah.
I'm okay.
motion?
Motion by Jackie, second by Phil. 5 in favor, 2 absent. We have passed.
And then I have an acknowledgement, signature, it was number 14, signature on Krzyzewski, agricultural barn up on County Road 39.
Done.
Done. That's all for me. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Claire, you have for us the famous Atlantic Golf Club.
I do. I have a couple things, actually. So you need the work sessions off the agenda, right?
Which,
So do that, number one.
yes,
PRD.
yep.
That'll be rescheduled. My first one is number 6, Roscoe. Constantina Maureen.
Page 22.
This is an application that in November, you adopted a pre-submission report on. This is for a new 3,600 square foot warehouse building on a parcel that's got existing uses on the building. So, existing buildings in the R20 zoning district. They went to the zoning board of appeals, they received the variances, and they've submitted an application which is complete in form. The 2 plans, the site plan and the elevations are in your packet. You made some comments at the pre-submission for some more features like shutters and cupolas. I don't think they're objectionable to the cupolas, but the shutters they don't feel will be visible because there's extensive landscaping around the site. So they've shown that on the site plan. I think at this time we have everything we need to process the application. Given the fact that it is residentially zoned and there's residences across the street from it, I'd recommend a public hearing still on the application. schedule it for the next available meeting, which is February 14th. Then we'll get some feedback from the ARB on the design of the
How
building.
many do we have on for the 14th?
This would be number 7.
7?
6, excuse me, 6.
Does that seem reasonable?
I think that's,
What is it? This
Well,
is
they're
for
not too
public
complicated
hearings?
as long as we
Are they?
don't schedule anymore.
I, you know, it just,
They're all pretty straightforward, aren't they?
Yeah, there's nothing that I,
For Champton Associates, at Bosun Rampart, Old Staples at Spionk, the two Priscilla Avenues, and Moscow.
Yeah, they're
There's
pretty
nothing
straightforward.
controversial.
Yeah.
that I see.
So Feb.
okay,
14?
can we
14.
cap it?
Yes? Yeah, you're good.
Okay, motion.
Motion by Jackie.
Second.
Second by Phil. Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye. 2 opposed? No,
Absent.
2
Two
absent,
absent.
I'm sorry.
Good. Okay, so my next one after that would be number 9, which is 324 West Montauk Highway, Tiana Pines Apartments.
page 31.
And I have a staff report for you to review.
This is number 9.
Number 9,
This is a draft, right?
Deanna
Claire?
Pines.
yeah. And that's not in here. You just have
It's
it.
coming, we're handing it out. It's on its way.
Yeah.
We just have it aerial. This, yours, Claire?
No, that's yours too. It's an aerial, right?
Okay, it's just not, okay.
There are a bunch of them.
No, yeah, excuse me. Yeah, yeah, okay. Why don't you and I look at
That's
that?
what happened.
Oh.
So the action deadline for this is the next meeting, which is January 24th. But I wanted to go over the issues on this project, just to tie everything up and the issues might be on the project. So this is for the conversion of a non-conforming motel use to a non-conforming apartment use for 16 total units with 3 affordable in the HB zoning districts. It is pursuant to SECRA, the Zoning Board of Appeals issued a negative declaration back on March 18th, 2015. The ZBA recently granted on June 7th, 2018, a change of use from one non-conforming use motel on premises to another non-conforming use 16 apartment units with a maximum occupancy of 48 persons. 3 of the units shall be affordable. I'm sorry, I didn't attach the decision, but I have it with me if anyone wants to have a copy. A public hearing was held at the Planning Board December 13th. Provided a 30-day written comment. There was no comments received during the public hearing nor during the comment period. Town engineer had a number of comments. Number 1 related to the survey. 2, the text had to be clearer. 3, related to the sanitary system and the drainage. 4 is drainage issues. 5, drainage. 6, drainage. And 7, related to the dumpster. Hampton Bays Fire District did not respond. The fire marshal.
Claire, can I
October
just,
24th.
can I just ask a question about?
Sure.
It says here, the applicant is proposing reuse of a previously used. What is the Suffolk, and they photocopy of Suffolk, is Suffolk County okay with that, or are they asking for anything updated?
Suffolk
on the-
County, as far as I know, has no problems. They have actually completed their review. The sanitary system has been installed on the property and is completed.
Okay.
Whether the reuse of the sanitary system for drainage, we will speak to the applicant regarding that issue,
Okay,
if you don't mind.
please.
Yeah, okay. The fire marshal described the application, said vehicle access shall be maintained free of obstructions, including snow and ice at all times. Recommend the space along the fence opposite the subject building to designated to be a fire zone, and requisite signage. Fire extinguishers required. Unit numbers, dumpsters should be enclosed. Electrical panels shall be maintained clear. Recommend the installation of a fire alarm system. Recommend the installation of automatic fire sprinkler systems, and carbon monoxide detectors are required. Health Department stated a final approval was issued on September 20th, 2018. Economic Development and Planning said it was a matter of local determination. Public Works said approval was held. Revised plans to show new access with ADA compliant handicap ramp. No response from the CAC. So the site's built already, so we're just working on the cleanup issues on this. With regard to lighting, there's a couple non-compliant lighting fixtures, and the applicants agreed to replace them with compliant ones, and we'll have our typical conditions. With regard to the drainage, the applicant's been working with the town engineer on this, proposing maybe a drainage swale at the access point so we don't have ice and drainage problems on the site. And also your issue about the drainage swale, we can ask, or drainage structure, we can ask the applicant on that. One other big issue is the sign on the property has been non-conforming. They've been issued violations. An appropriate, more directional sign would probably be appropriate to the site. So we're asking them to remove it as a condition of approval.
And submit a new sign.
Correct, yeah.
Can I ask a question about looking at the site plan? I'm seeing a right-of-way that gives access to the property, and then I'm seeing an asphalt driveway, which is on the map. Is that right-of-way going to be closed off, or are we going to have two access and two different ways of getting onto this property?
No, it's not going to be closed off. So the one on the,
It's not showing here.
the one on the right, if you remember, if you've been here.
Yeah, I've been
and-
here, but you'll have to refresh my recollection.
Tereski comes to the site to the right. They own and they use the flag strip to the left. So that is their, even though they cross each other, they could probably technically each use it, but they don't have the rights, so you wouldn't close it.
No, no, I-
Tereski uses the one on the right.
Who uses that?
Tereski.
Wait, the crosshatched one?
So let me just make sure that I'm speaking about the rest right.
This is the,
Okay, I'm looking
That's
at,
Tereski. Crosshatched one is Tereski.
in the deed to this property, who has the right, who has the right to the right-of-way or the easement?
Who own, and he can speak also, but only this property, the subject property, can use the actual flag strip that extends to the road. The one on the right is only an easement over the adjacent
over this property.
restaurant property.
Okay.
And that was our
So
issue
that-
with Tereski.
Does it go anywhere? Does that right-of-way go anywhere?
Yeah.
Yes, it goes to Tereski. It crosses over.
Yeah, you see,
This is
so,
Tereski's property.
yeah, so that's, okay.
If you recall, when Kevin
Yeah.
Kresge came in for a site
Yeah.
plan, we did try to see if we could make this work in a more reasonable fashion, but it didn't happen.
So we're going to continue, just refresh my recollection. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to continue to have people who will use this. I'm just looking at traffic flow and danger and access and such.
Yeah.
So Turetsky is going to use the right-of-way to go to his property. People who are living or are residing at the hotel will be able to use it also because it's crossing the property. And, right, so that you have two,
They don't have the rights for the legally.
I understand, but it's going to be there.
It's not going to be a good
it's-
situation.
And if
It's-
you recall, it's resultant of a Supreme Court decision
Yeah,
between
okay.
Tereski and this property owner.
It
So-
was a decision.
Well,
No.
yes, there is a Supreme Court, there was litigation between these two parties, which resulted in, is it a stipulation? I don't have the file in front of me. so-
I'm sorry, I'm just concerned about traffic usage. I'm trying to
No, we-
understand how we're going, because I'm looking at a site plan that shows only one driveway of ingress and egress, and then I'm looking at the
Equal
map.
like this.
I know, and I'm
And we
concerned.
haven't been able to resolve that
Yeah.
because we have two parties. Frankly, we can't force them to resolve it in the way that we'd like them to resolve it, so, and they have litigated this issue in Supreme Court, and it's been settled. This
Is there
the
a way
It's
of-
been settled.
So has it been settled to a way that the people who are residing there are not supposed to use this? Is it going to say for commercial
Can it-
use
can it
only?
be marked
Can it be
private
marked?
road?
Yeah, right.
Well, let
Commercial
him
use?
speak.
Okay.
Do you want to discourage them from using the Tereski right-of-way? Is
Oh,
that what you're
sure,
saying?
yeah.
Okay.
That's what my concern is that you've got people and trucks and everybody exiting, and the other entrance and exit is right near it. So I'm trying to look at that pattern there, so.
Yeah, good afternoon, Board.
Now, this was
Mike
litigated
Nobility for the
Yeah,
applicant.
I understand that.
To the end of the time already, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just looking at the site plan.
Jeff, explain that to
Now,
you.
when you're done, when you're
No,
done.
we haven't seen it at all.
But the site plan?
Do you have another map?
This colored one.
Oh, the
I apologize.
The aerial's not in the map?
The aerial is
Yeah,
here,
aerials.
but
That's the aerial.
But she wants to see this.
Keep it.
Keep
Just
that, we
give
have
us
another
another one. Oh, you have a whole bunch.
Oh, holding out on us, huh?
It's the aerial, right?
Yeah,
Does
yeah.
it show anything else?
right.
Yeah, well, no, but the aerial shows
It doesn't
that
even show the right of way. It
Well,
doesn't show the
somewhat.
dumpster, doesn't,
somewhat, yes.
it only shows the curb cut. You have one for Claire?
No, it's fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
So, you're on.
Okay, so I'll let just the right-of-ways here. There are two separate right-of-ways. The one on your right hand, all right, is the easement right-of-way from the restaurant to Mr. Tereski, and where it reaches up to where the red line is, and enters onto the Tiana Pines property. There's the right-of-way easement for Mr. Tereski to come onto the Tiana Pines and make that left-hand turn where you see the curve in the road, cross the Tiana Pines property, and go into his property. Simultaneously, on the right-hand side, there's a right-of-way easement for the power company for the power line, beginning at Montauk Highway, across the restaurant property, continuing on the Tiana property, north up to the railroad tracks.
So that's the other, that's the dashed line.
Yes, you'll see that dashed line.
The utility is the dashed line. So
Right.
we're not,
So the portion where the restaurant is the combined easements for Tereski and for the lighting company, and as you go on to the Tiana properties, it continues on for the power company, and Mr. Tereski makes a left turn for his right-of-way. There was a stipulation of settlement with the court defining the actual road bed for Mr. Tereski to come onto the property and to stay within which to access his property, and that is what the Tiana Pines owners wish to have Mr. Tereski abide to, and he has agreed to stay within that right-of-way.
how is it demarcated? Is there a demarcation on this?
There's the survey.
No, I'm not talking about the survey. I'm
Physical.
talking physically
Physically.
at the site for a person who lives either, who's entering has to go to Mr. Tereski's business, or for someone going to the hotel, the motel, or for anyone. Is there a demarcation that says this is a commercial, this is for trucks only, or this is for Tereski only? Is there anything that, and then when we get onto the property for this left turn, is this marked somehow?
No, just the roadbed tracks of the vehicles going in and out over a gravel road.
Gravel.
And when it comes to the, upon the blacktop area of the Tiana Pines parking and roadway area, it's an asphalt driveway, and then that abuts Mr. Tereski's property, and he travels onto his property, which again becomes a gravel road.
So we have trucks crossing where there could be people residing.
It's not the best situation, but what
Yes,
did what
that's
did the
correct.
court say?
That is correct.
Is there, it's,
What did the court say? They
The
allowed
court
it?
signed a stipulation agreement agreed to by Mr. Tereski and the owners of Tiana Pines, that this was the roadbed that was necessary, and Mr. Tereski acknowledged that that is what was sufficient for him to have for his uses, and Tiana Pines agreed to that also, and they have the dotted line portion of that on the site plan is what the stipulation agreement is.
was there any agreement amongst the parties or any concern by the court as to how these driveways were to be designated with signs or gates or fences or plants or anything for safety? Or was there anything, or they just defined the easements and said?
They defined the
going away?
easement, they defined the maintenances
Going away.
of the roads. This would be a gravel road, except where the paved portion of the Tiana Pines Road is. Mr. Tereski used to maintain the Tiana Pines blacktop area, okay, that it takes some wear and tear from the trucks going out to his property. Otherwise, it continues on into a gravel road within the stipulated
I think
area.
that Robin makes a very good point regarding this. And it's how much leeway is the planning board given to make design
I can
issues
say
on it.
right now, you can designate, you can fence this off to make a safe area for the people at the apartments. So if you want to put a fence right along that line where the trucks and their cars will operate, that would make sense to me. We would do this for any site plan.
We have site, let me tell you what my concerns are, so you can look at it in the totality, because I don't want to piecemeal where we're doing something at the top and nothing at the bottom or whatever. My concern is that we have a commercial right-of-way on one side, which then becomes a second access to the back development, which wasn't what we planned on having, a second access to the back development. And then you have trucks crossing where you have possibly, I don't want to get dramatic, children can be, people walking and such. And we've got a lot of action going here. So I have three areas concerned. One is the right-of-way, who's using that, whether there's going to be any signage there, or can we control that? The second is the regular entranceway, the correct entranceway pursuant to the map. And the third concern I have is this left turn area going through a residential community that we're designating for housing and families and such. So I think that, I don't want to piecemeal it and say, well, let's put a fence here or do something here. I think we ought to look at that traffic flow and see how and what recommendations we can make to control that within the guidelines of the court decision.
Let me just clarify that the actual use of the Tereski right-of-way is solely for Mr. Tereski.
I don't,
And the Tiana Pines tenants and owners do not have the right to go over the portion of the easement on the east side that belongs to the restaurant.
I agree with you
So
that in
they do not
theory,
use it.
that's correct now, but in practicality, if I'm coming home and I'm going to make a turn, there's odds are I will make a turn where I want to make a turn, and there's, the Tereski easement police will not be out there saying you can't make the turn there. So I have to be concerned with the flow. So, I mean, I understand what the court accomplished in defining the rights, but now we're looking at the site plan and the safety.
All right, the
So
Tiana Pines,
The court accomplished this in order to get two people to agree. So
Ye-
each one got a little something.
yes, there was,
But in getting a little something, it creates a relatively unsafe situation.
it's an odd situation. We can take a step back. A man named Page owned this entire property, where the restaurant is, that fronts on Montauk Highway, the Tereski property, and the Tiana Pines property. He originally had a site plan here, which included all of these properties. This is in 1972 in that neighborhood, which included all of these properties. There was a sister involved to Mr. Page. There was then a split of the Tereski lot, which was then to be her residential lot, with the easement right-of-way that we're talking about that you see today. And then the restaurant and the motels were to belong to Mr. Page for him to operate. Further, there was a separation of the Tiana motel lots from the restaurant lots, so that now we have three lots that were once at one time owned together. And this is the history as to how this came about. Now, with regards to the entry of Tiana Pines, that's a much more friendly road to travel.
It's
It's
wider.
much wider, and the tenants know, as part of their rules and regulations of the tenancy at the Tiana Pines, that is the roadbed they're to use.
I understand, but I'm looking at that right away, and it goes the full entire length of the property to the back parking lot.
That is the easement.
Utility easement.
That's the utility easement.
Only the
Mr. Tereski
utility?
ends just
It's not
south,
surprised, no.
Okay.
okay,
'cause
where
I'm
the
seeing
turn
the same
begins
map.
to the left is
Okay.
Mr. Tereski's right-of-way.
I'm just saying practicality and law sometimes don't make it. So you're saying that everybody understands this, and we can still have a little bit of I think it's something we have to look at.
Yeah. I mean, the ideal thing would be that everybody takes the driveway. Turetsky goes into his property, Tiana Pines goes into theirs. But it's heavy equipment that Turetsky's dealing with, right? He's got
Yes, that is
trucks.
correct.
So he's not very welcome, I would think, to go over the Tiana driveway.
His equipment and trucks and the weight of that would eat up that asphalt driveway. As you say, there's sort of a dog leg in the Tiana entry, and where they make those 90-degree turns, those trucks will gouge out and disturb the asphalt.
So they have a maintenance agreement of some kind with
included in the stipulation is a maintenance agreement that Mr. Tereski is to maintain that portion of the blacktop area that he crosses over
Right.
when he goes to, over the Tiana Pines blacktop.
Can I ask you something? Could we do something like, perhaps, if it was designated here, down here, some type of designation as to who uses the right-of-way, commercial traffic only, Turetsky, private road, whatever. And instead of some fencing, we can maybe do some
There's signage there
landscaping.
now.
But can we maybe do some landscaping so that people who are coming up that driveway can't make that left turn to go to their parking lot or go on to, you know what I'm saying? That we can designate and separate, perhaps nicely with landscaping and such, the difference between the commercial and such, and it'll give some, protection to people walking.
They've also indicated, I see, that the dumpster site is located in that. So it doesn't
Yes.
say
Gotta
where.
come out. It's coming out.
It's coming
Yes.
out. So it's going to be
I
relocated.
think your idea of landscaping and/or fencing is great. We'll take a look at that.
Could you?
Yeah, and then internal signage, same thing.
And signage on the-
Like, we could have a sign that says caution trucks, or caution children, or something to
Yes,
that effect.
right.
And at the beginning of Trusky's, not
Private
maybe
or
at the end of
commercial.
it, not on Montauk, but where it comes in with the easement, we could just put a sign that says private right of way.
But
Yes.
what about, but I think you do need something on down on Montauk.
But he doesn't control the easement, so I'm a little bit afraid
Who
of.
doesn't control?
The applicant.
The applicant doesn't, but he controls the easement on his
The
property.
intersection.
So I feel a little bit more better about that. And if we ever get Trusky back in, he's not completely done. Maybe we could suggest he has something on his easement too.
Perhaps-
So,
Oh, we can't just send them a friendly letter saying we're concerned about this, and could you, perhaps work with us to make sure that your easement is protected so that it isn't used by the residents? Put a
I
private
will
road
see
sign.
him, so I can put, I
Yeah,
it up.
yeah.
So that's a 12-foot right-of-way, that's pretty narrow.
12 or,
It is 12.
yeah, no, it was an issue the whole time. And we had an engineer look at it, and we had a design for trucks, and it's, at the end of the day, it worked. But that was part of your whole analysis for Trusky, so.
That would be great. I see there's a private road sign, private something?
Right, private
Yes.
driveway.
Oh, okay.
There's
That's
something
for
it's a-
you, though, right?
Yeah, that's
Excuse me?
residents.
That, yeah, on the
That's
on the
yours.
Tiana Pines, yes,
Yeah.
right-of-way easement driveway. There are, there's
Okay, so
signage.
perhaps we can suggest some more signage and perhaps in that area, some landscaping or fencing.
A good
Yeah,
site.
Yeah,
Take a look
something
at it.
that would stop people from jumping,
That's good.
making it.
So this private driveway is on the Tiana Pines?
Yeah, yes, so that Trusky or someone else would not use it.
Should say Tiana Pines
Yeah.
private driveway.
Good.
Should be indicated what it is.
Where would you put the fence? You're contemplating.
I'm sorry, I don't have the site plan in front of me, so let me take a look at it. But it would, does it, maybe the edge of the easements where the right-of-way can, and if there's a designated area on the other
Right
side, I'm
here,
not quite
Phil.
sure.
In this area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what, I'm
Okay.
concerned, I'm concerned about this area up here, where they're making that
Yeah.
left turn.
Classy.
Okay.
Well, knowing a little bit about the situation, I can tell you that you're not talking about 18-wheelers. You're talking about pickup trucks.
That's fine, I
But-
just,
and I-
till it's
but I
running through the
understand
middle of a
your-
residential.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep,
Thank you.
then you're establishing the residential use on the property.
Yes.
So this is very appropriate to do, so. Do you want to answer the question about the sanitary system?
Yes.
Ring?
So-
I'm sorry, you can only speak, we can only pick you up there, so if you want to give it to.
Yeah, the plan I just handed to you is the Suffolk County Department of Health approval
Yeah, I think everybody needs to see it.
Thank you.
approval of the as-built, the details of the, all of the septic systems, including the notations there in yellow where it says that those rings that were formerly part of the septic system may now be used for the leaching rings for the roof runoff. The way we got there, the health department, when they considered the change of use, they did issue, they wanted to do testing of what was in the rings. We did a TCLP testing of the sand. It came back with no detrimental elements in it, and for that reason, the health department concluded that it could be used after it was pumped out and after the systems were abandoned, the tanks were abandoned, that it could be used now for the roof runoff from the roof
So
structure.
for drainage, essentially.
Yes, okay.
But new septics are going in.
Yes, the new septics have been installed, and that stamp there of approval includes the 2 new septic systems. You see one at the very north, at the top of the page, for the north building, and one at the bottom of the south building, for the south building.
And these are just regular septics, not new IA systems?
They're not IA systems, no.
Now, do these roof drains have to be pumped periodically, or are they something that just continues to clean themselves?
They do not have to be pumped, no.
They don't generate
Yeah.
They
Okay.
seep into the ground.
anything, that's going to be clear water discharge into the rings. We're 27 feet above groundwater. We have a very sandy soil there. Fortunately, the percolation is very good.
Excellent.
And that also went into the consideration with the health department for the approval for this, that they said those rings are good, they're intact, and you can use them for the roof runoff.
Can you figure out why the health department didn't want you to put in new
IA?
upgraded IA system?
Yeah, for several reasons, okay. Number one, this permit from the health department was obtained in September 2012.
Oh.
IA systems were in place at that point, or were coming through. They were not available to the extent that they are today, certainly for the residential. The IA system for commercial, getting up into this over 1,000 gallons, 1,500 gallons per day capacity, were not available. They were available from manufacturers, but not yet approved by the health department, only for residential. In this past October, there have been 2 or 3 manufacturers approved for the larger IA systems that could be used in a Tiana Pines flow rate situation. Okay? The fact that we had our permit in place, we just went and continued on with the construction based on the permit that we had.
It's a timing issue.
All right?
It's unfortunate, though,
Yeah.
because if anything could use an IA system, it's this.
Well, we have 2,500 gallons per day use flow rate for each of those systems. For the total of those systems, it's 1,250 each one. So yes, if you know the nitrogen cycle and the hydraulic gradients from a system, eventually any of the nitrogen in there will reach the body of water or go to groundwater and continue on into a bay. That's correct. So an IA system would help mitigate that buildup of nitrogen.
There's nothing else that the health department would recommend to mitigate the nitrogen, other than taking what you've got out and putting in IA system?
No, at the time, no, and even to today, if you look at your priority mapping from the health department and from the town as those areas which would give the greatest benefit if an IA were installed, generally along the coastal areas near the bays and so on, that we're far enough back and we have very high elevation above groundwater that we're not intercepting the groundwater until we get about 25 feet, 27 feet below grade. Now, as it goes through the sand, some of that nitrogen will be trapped in some of the sandy soils. So we're not having that direct flow with the hydraulic gradient of groundwater that some of the systems would have that were closer to groundwater.
So this is the staff report. There's the deadline's in the next meeting, and I'll prepare a resolution with conditions. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you.
No action.
It's just a draft.
No action. We're just, this is the draft, and I'll update this with your concerns. I'll work on the issue of the fencing and the signage, and we'll have some conditions for the next.
And it could be landscaping,
Yeah, that's a great point. I think landscaping works too.
All right. I'd like to ask the board for one clarification. In the handout that I just gave to you, I wanted just to speak about the use of the property. The use now is going to be as an apartment. Previously, it was a motel, a pre-1972 motel without length of stay restrictions, and it did have, has a kitchenette. The New York State Building Code classifies the apartment use and this motel use to be in the same category. The Suffolk County Department of Health considers to be in the same category. They're considered housekeeping units, in this case less than 600 square feet at 150 gallons per day flow rate. That in the packet there, you'll see in the exhibits that the Health Department does consider co-ops, apartments, motels to be all the same use as far as they're concerned. Now, here, this is going to be relevant because of how are we applying, what are the standards for which Tiana must comply with in order to get planning board approval. The use aspects of this, and we know that there are differences in the use between a transient use as opposed to a permanent use, taxes, children going to school, etc. But all of these issues were taken into effect when the Zoning Board of Appeals granted the use for the apartments, and now it's become, they're making it a compliant use. So we would like to have the board look at the needs of what is the physical needs of the roads, the structures, the buildings, and not look at the use issues, and then come to a conclusion as to what improvements are necessary for a pre-existing complex that's already built.
So I'm not quite sure I understand what you're saying, sort of the cart before the horse or the other way around.
Perhaps.
I don't think it works that way.
Claire, can you
But if
clarify what he's
people-
asking?
I'm talking about the site plan
He's
elements.
talking about the sanitary, the drainage requirements. So a new site plan will require 2-inch drain runoff for impervious surfaces, and including the buildings, and the town engineer is going to hold him to that. He's asking for some consideration, being that they're existing structures. But we would do this for any project, new or proposed.
Right.
And I think it can be worked out. So I'm suggesting that he take this up with the town engineer, and if there's a level of not agreeing, then that's why you're here, to consider the two sides and see if there's a compromise, if they can't compromise. But I think they can at this time.
I thought he was also implying or asking about requirements for residency. In other words, handicap accessibility, fire.
That's a building code issue, and I don't think
Yeah.
it's anything over that you have jurisdiction over. I'm not quite sure.
Well, handicap we do, right?
Well, ADA,
That
Is that what you're asking,
Right.
Mr. Noblety?
no, I'm not asking about ADA.
What are you
It's not
asking
clear to
about?
us.
I was saying that in the site plan elements here, in your 33183, the category of proposed development is within which where many of the standards are shown for a site plan, including the 2-inch rainfall.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he's asking, it's what Claire articulated, he's
Okay.
asking for an exemption because he's existing, he's not pre-existing.
Okay.
Excuse me, he's pre-existing, not new, and I think Claire's been articulate in
Right.
what the response.
Got it.
Yeah, and the major portion of the property, that's the main body of this flagpole setup, where we are going to be compliant. We're proposing substantial new drainage rings and direction of the water into those rings. It's only in the pole portion of the flagpole lot that we may have difficulty.
In the what? I'm sorry.
This is the flagpole configuration that you see of this
Yeah.
access road. It's the access roadway from Montauk Highway that may be the problem, where we need some assistance from you to not enforce the 2-inch rainfall containment.
If any of that is going off the property, we'd give him a violation anyways. It doesn't matter if you're pre-existing or not. So I think the town engineer is just looking for a way to address that issue now. which
Keep
is
the
good.
drainage
And the drainage
contained on
on
the
site,
property.
and we'll go from there.
Yeah, now we do keep it on site. We're not asking for an exemption to
You're asking
discharge.
for the exemption for the 2-inch.
Yes.
So, again, I think there's a happy medium. He's proposing a swale. So I think that might work in this case. So let's see.
So we're going to wait till the town engineer reviews what he's suggesting, and then you'll make a
Yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah, let's get to that point. on that issue.
Yes. And I think otherwise, we should be relatively close to the standards you're looking for.
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be nice?
that would be great. Okay,
Good.
great, thanks, Mike.
Okay, good.
I'll take it. That's a good one. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So my next one is Atlanta Golf Club. So we're at the point, October 11th,
Page
2008.
32.
You issued a conditional approval for the teaching facility for the Atlanta Golf Club with a number of conditions. So there's two outstanding items bigger items we should discuss. One is that there was a internal management plan proposed. I gave Jackie a copy, but I'm going to pass out this to the rest of you. And also here.
Here, do you want me to pass it
Yeah,
down?
please. Oh, the first actual page, let me speak to this. After the approval, the issue was brought up with the tiger salamanders. And so at the time, you had asked me, and I had understood, I immediately reached out to the applicant. They secured from the DEC on January 3rd a letter of non-jurisdiction that this project that they're proposing is not going to impact, the salamanders is not in the salamander jurisdiction. Okay, so that answers that question. That is the top letter, yes. So the second item, which there has been, the second item actually, I think is the town engineer questions. They've submitted their plans for signature. The town engineer looked at it one more time and had an outstanding item, which they asked for the retaining wall detail. So they've just submitted that today. We'll have the town engineer look at that and address that issue. She, in this memo, brings up issue that in a 100-year storm situation with 9-inch rainfall, the building will flood. And she brought it up to me, and I said to her, and she kind of agreed, is that maybe a recognition of the applicants that would happen would be on the record would be helpful. So the applicant might speak to that issue too. Otherwise, I'll just make sure the town engineer is fine with the plans before we release them. So that's that issue.
You realize how many 100-year storms we've had in the last 5 years?
Yeah.
I know.
Several.
Several.
That would be if the ground was frozen too. So just understand, 100-year storm, ground is frozen. So there's no percolation. So the situation, and the engineer's here to speak to it much more articulately than me.
The 2-inch rainfall, containing a 2-inch rainfall is archaic. Because all you have to do is drive around here after a heavy rain, serious, and there's flooding everywhere.
Yeah.
The old swales come back.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a question? What is the acknowledgement of the applicant to this fact supposed to be? Is that supposed to be in protecting us?
Seems
or
like a liability issue.
It's supposed to be that we've warned them and don't come back?
That's what I take from it, yeah.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Is this supposed to be indemnified?
It meets our standards, so I think that's what the applicant's going to say, is the only reason he did that analysis is to get out of the SWIP requirement for the states. Our standards are met. Our standards for flooding are met. So it's just, we have that kind of analysis, you can't really,
So
town
if they're
engineer doesn't
drowning,
want
She
to
doesn't
ignore
ignore
it.
it, right.
Yes.
She doesn't want to ignore it.
Yeah.
But I mean, did our town engineer ever consider revising our standards?
Back to your issue about the 2-inch.
I've been talking about that for 4 years.
That is a great question, and I'll put it on my list of things to
Put it
think.
on your
Well,
list.
now
Yes.
that we have a new town engineer, maybe it's time, Jackie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's critical because we really are all suffering at the effect of this, of driving through lakes.
What we're talking about? I will put it on my list. It's on my big list. Thank you. And then the other items is that the progress and monitoring report related to the turtles and the capturing, and so they provided a report. Marty looked at it, which I've attached his comments, and they have incorporated his comments entirely into their reports. So they're going to address all his comments. And I think
So will we be getting an updated report from them?
they, an updated report, yes, and they provided it, they brought it today. So that is the report with everything in there. So I'll have him hand that out to you, okay? I think that's it. So if you're in agreement, this applicant will speak to the couple issues I brought up. If you're in agreement to it, afterwards, I'll have Phil sign it. We'll stamp them up and have Phil sign them, okay?
Good evening, members of the planning board, or good afternoon. My name is Vincent Gordiello. I'm a principal with the Rayner Group, and I just wanted to put some clarity to this comment by the town engineer and in essence, what my discussions are with her and what the whole process is about this 100-year storm event. When this planning board issued conditional final approval, one of the conditions was we needed to prepare a stormwater pollution prevention plan and obtain permit coverage under the Speedy's general permit. And that determination was based on the fact that we were disturbing more than 1 acre of soil. With that said, the permit conditions and the requirements for coverage under the Speedy's permit, in essence, is twofold. It's you're disturbing 1 acre of soil, or you have disturbance in more than 1 acre, and that the 100-year storm event has the potential to enter waters of the United States or a municipal stormwater sewer system that would enter the waters of the United States. With that said, we felt it was easier for us to demonstrate that we can contain the 100-year storm event on our property, and that so event would not enter waters of the United States. And in doing that analysis, the DEC set some criteria. They want you to do a percolation test on the soils. They want you to define what the soils were. Well, what we did was we said, you know what, we're going to take that data and those contingencies and put them aside and paint the worst case scenario. We're going to assume that this tributary area that we're talking about is frozen earth. No water goes into the ground whatsoever. And we're going to base that tributary area at 100% runoff, frozen ground, and 9 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. Though we hear people talk about the 100-year storm, and we've had a few in the last couple of years, I've lived here for a bunch of years, I would say, since I was in second grade. I went away for college for a bit. But, you know, the last time we had 9 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, I probably would think maybe once or twice. So though we are getting more closer to the 50-year storm, which in this region is more like 5 inches of rain over a 24-hour period, you know, that 100-year storm, I think, is a very pressing storm event. With that said,
Excuse me, is that where you got the 9 inches?
yes.
Okay.
And that comes strictly from the DEC's design manual. So what we did was we demonstrated that we do not need permit coverage. And I think in the town engineer's memo, she indicates that. The applicant has demonstrated the ability to maintain the 100-year storm. The applicant has adequately demonstrated there's no potential for discharge to waters of the United States. With that said, what we've done with our design for our facility and our proposed improvements is base it on a 2-inch storm event. And we've adequately demonstrated that through the use of dry wells and water conduits in handling stormwater, that we met the criteria of the code. And I believe what the town engineer is asking for is, you know, in the event, you know, your storm drains get clogged with leaves that you're proposing to install, and the ground is frozen, and you get 9 inches of rain over a 24-hour period, that you're going to get water in your building. And you know what? She's correct in saying that. But in you know, practically speaking, and you know, I'm willing to bet the ranch that, you know, that's really never going to happen. But again, we're talking 2 exercises right here.
Yep.
Meeting the drainage standards of the code, which we've adequately done, as well as demonstrate why we do not need permit coverage under the Speedy's general permit.
So you went all the way back to 2 inches?
We did. And again,
Because that's the code.
that's the code. Now, on that subject, and I heard what you said prior to this, I would support the town considering increasing their drainage storm events when it comes to on-site drainage. I think in my line of work, I represent municipalities in which some of them are considering increasing it to 3 inches. And that is in line with some of the storm event and the design manual that the DEC uses.
Would you consider doing that here?
It's something that I think could be considered in the town of Southampton. Fortunately for us here in the town and mostly on, eastern Long Island, you deal with a very sandy soil condition. So when you look at this criteria of storm events and what is published by the DEC, they're general to the entire New York State. So obviously, if you're in upstate New York or in areas where you don't have those good, well-draining sandy soils like we have here on eastern Long Island, it makes much more sense to look at, what should I say, a more intense storm event than you would in, say, 2 inches in 24 hours.
Yet we also have topography and geography that's filled with swales. that's
Swales,
filled with
farm fields,
what
and
upstate doesn't have.
actually, the sheet flow that you get off of a frozen farm field, and again, we've looked at a lot of these, sometimes can be 4 times
Yeah.
what would be compared to what the design criteria would be in the code. So again, I know you can look at stuff on a case-by-case basis, and that's what we've done here. We've evaluated our site for the 100-year storm event. But, generally speaking, the 2-inch is something kind of more towards the lower end of what the typical criteria is that is being used. Or it's always been 2 inches. And what you are seeing is people or municipalities, governing agencies that are increasing that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. I'm going to recommend the approval of the turtle management plan, and then I'll prepare the maps for you to sign for this evening, okay?
Anybody speaking to the turtle management plan?
But
No,
no.
no public speaking.
No, I know.
You mean the applicant?
Yeah.
Okay. I summarized it that Marty has recommended those
Right.
conditions on that memo, and they've been incorporated fully into that report.
Yeah, can you just give us a brief idea about this?
Tony Panson, architect for the club, with Rogers McCagg Architects. Marty provided, well, I should say, we provided in the planning board, they just asked that we provide a mitigation report, and we provided that to Marty, as Claire had said. Marty came back with his comments, which actually I gave all of my copies to you, so I can't read from it. But one thing that might be helpful is that the last 2 pages of what you have are actually Marty's comments from the original report. And so it might be just helpful just to go to those. It's a lot of clarifications and I think notes that were added into it and things that the club already, let's say, does. So something in there of the nature of if a species is identified on the property that doesn't say actually if it's turtle or frog, it needs help to call the wildlife refuge. So these are minor clarifications that he's asked to be put in there, but if you go through it, you'll find out the types of traps that are going to be used, where the traps are going to be placed, about what time the traps would be placed. In other words, we're not doing this now. This would have to be done in the spring. And so that's all laid out in there.
And who monitors this? Goes in and actually monitors the traps and makes a report if you get a tiger salamander in there?
There's 2 parts to this. There's the wildlife mitigation plan, which just Marty had asked how are they going to be, and then the reports is the second part, and that's also in there, and that's outlined as to inner science is we have selected who would be doing the reports, and there's a notation as to how often they'd be going, and Marty has approved that as well, and where the reports go to. And if you look at the very last page, it's also that you'll be getting a copy of the quarterly reports, as well as Marty, and an electronic copy and a paper copy, so it's pretty specific.
Are they expecting to find a lot of turtles there?
Wetlands.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of the strange thing for me. That area that we're looking to turn into a proper wetland area, the quality of, the reason why Marty was so much on our side is the quality of that area right now, it's really just all Phragmite. And it's there's not much life there of anything. So we're looking to turn it into something which has a much better quality for habitation. I can't say that in my time that I've wandered around that I've seen a turtle or frog in it. So we're going to find out.
But they may be moving in.
After,
Well, create a nice habitat. for
yes, that's the idea. Take out all the Phragmite so that they can actually get to the water's edge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the action would be to approve the turtle management plan,
Okay.
revised January 2019.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Phil.
Second.
Second by Jackie. All in favor? 5 in favor, 2 absent.
No public testimony. What?
So he's made the point that the area that was disturbed has wiped out a tiger salamander habitat, and that he was going to report it to the DEC. So that doesn't appear in here in any way.
And the DEC's jurisdiction would be 1,000 feet from this property.
And where was the wetland that was taken out?
It hasn't been done yet, the activity.
Is it 1,000 feet away from the installation of this? I mean, that's Larry Penny, who is the former director of environmental resources in East Hampton. You want to speak to that?
I don't know what Larry is specifically speaking of, but we're in front of you to be able to do the project. So the driving range, which is the area that we'd be removing, and the existing so-called wetland that we want to turn into a much better wetland, those haven't been touched. Both of those areas, as noted by the DEC's letter, are outside of the 1,000-foot area. That was an application made to the DEC for that, and they came back with that letter.
So any excavation is not disturbing any,
Correct. There is construction going on at Atlantic, which is the replacement of the existing irrigation pond. That's a lined pond, not a wetland.
is this the
being-
pond you see from the road? No.
No.
So, for the record, there is a January 3rd, 2019 letter from the DEC that says, "Your proposed project does not currently require a permit pursuant to the endangered and threatened species of fish and wildlife due to its location more than 1,000 linear feet." So I think that speaks to the issue.
Would say so.
So it's not near this pond, the existing pond?
Our
More than
two-
1,000 linear feet from the known occupied habitat pond of tiger salamander?
Yes.
That's what he's referring to.
That known,
That's disturbed.
no, that known area, again, I don't know what he's describing, but the known area, we leave it to the DEC cites the known areas. We send them our locations for our project, 2 locations they do the 1,000 foot from where they know, or where they thought they knew, or where they were back in 28 years. They do the offset, and they say, you're not in that area. So, and that area is not being touched. That's in the middle of the golf course. We're not there at all. I think he may be speaking about the irrigation pond replacement, but that's a man-made irrigation pond. We're replacing the liner.
Right.
We'll see.
So anyway, we have a motion and a second. We can vote.
Second, Jackie, did you second?
I removed my second. Somebody else can second it.
I still have the motion.
Second.
5 in favor, 2 absent. We have a motion passed.
Thank you. Then the number 11, which is Watermill Square, is off the agenda. And then I have one other item, Long Island Automobile Collectors LLC.
Because there are tons of toilets around here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's in our packet, is it? Okay.
I happen to like to.
They're good fellows. They're ancient.
You never hear anything bad about that. You gonna take that home? No. Very emphatic. Automobile.
Sure.
So earlier last year, you issued a pre-submission report for this project. This is proposed to be a new office building in the HB zoning district. And then this property has a zoning line of HB to the south and R20 to the north. And on that property is a number of storage buildings, which were used in conjunction with the Automobile Museum.
So that's where the automobile, right at that wild intersection.
Yes, near the monuments.
So Richard.
Yeah, across
Yeah.
the street from that. So, so the proposal is to demolish that front building, I think, and then.
The
Quonset hut?
Sorry.
No, I think they're restoring that. I think
Front
they're
part,
restoring,
right.
they're restoring that, so, and then they're gonna be an office building. So that part is conforming, and you control that with the site plan, but the portion in the back, if they're gonna use it for storage, which they're proposing to do for the clean and empty portable toilets, they would need a change of zone, a change of use, one non-conforming use to another. So,
How is it zoned now?
well, right now, it's zoned R20, but it's been used historically as part of the, first the museum, and then for storage of cars and repair of cars. So they have been established that use, they have a CO for that use.
That's the front.
That's the back.
Oh, the back.
Back. The front, they still have that same use, but that can be changed if you review a site plan for an office and associated light industrial storage. You've done that before in HB zoning district. So those are all issues you outlined in your pre-submission reports. And now it's the application to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And they're doing two things. One is the change of one non-conforming use to another. And the second is to move the zoning line to the north 50 feet to capture one of those buildings, and that would be commercial also, rather than having that be non-conforming. So with your packets, where I just passed out some issues I brought up. Number one is just a description of what the application is proposed. Two is your summary. Go ahead.
I think I'm missing.
You have another one?
No, I just did the front page. The rest of it is your pre-submission report, but I could give that to you too. That's just the summary. You don't have that page? Oh, you
No, I
passed
must
them all
have
out.
overpassed.
3 is, I'm recommending, I don't know if you agree, is that they limit that the whole property not become commercial. It's a big piece of property. It's zoned R20.
And there are residences all around.
The south, you can historically see that the buildings have been there, but up until 2 years ago, there was no clearing on the north part of the property. Now they have connected the right-of-way from the Norsec existing site to this new building they proposed. So they've blown out a road through it on the aerial. You can see that. So I'm recommending there be some limitation on the extent of the commercial, given that there's residential uses on that east side. I think there should be some limitations. The proposal is a type 1 action. It requires secret prior to the ZBA decision, and then you'd review the project to the site plan. Go ahead.
I'm just asking
Sure.
for your more clarification on why you think they should limit the commercial use, because, I mean, it's their property.
It's zoned residential.
Well, but
They want to make it a residential use?
No.
No. So you don't want to make it a oh, no, you
well, I'm just,
feel either way.
most of the people who live behind there are associated with the business anyway.
I don't know that. Do you?
Yeah.
Do you know they all
Well,
are
no, not
commercial?
all, but, right, Joe, a lot of the families who,
There are several, there are also.
Joe, just come up.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll get yelled at in the new year.
I should know better anyway. Joe Lombardi from the Rayner Group. There are several residential properties on the east side. And some of them are associated with the family that owns the facility.
That really shouldn't be a criteria, because if somebody wants to sell that house, then
Right.
it could have a negative impact. So who owns it now, I don't think should be relevant.
I agree.
There are also non-conforming commercial uses on the east side, so it's not just residences over there.
But
And
you know,
then,
the whole issue of non-conforming, Joan, you know this.
Mhm.
I mean, in our code, one pre-existing non-conforming use to another pre-existing, I mean, you cannot increase it by more than 50%, which is much larger. We made a recommendation some years back that it should be no more than 20%.
Mhm.
Because you'll never retire the pre-existing non-conforming uses, never. If it's always an exchange for apples to apples, it just doesn't happen. So here's an opportunity that's a large parcel. Agree with Claire, that what you can reclaim in some way, buffer, whatever, is a valid one, because it is R20 zoned.
I believe buffers are proposed as part of the site
And
plan.
and I agree with Gloria, you know, that it's not the rationale to say, well, use it the way it's been used historically, and,
no, that was me. That's-
Yeah,
I don't want to put
oh, you
words.
said that, sorry.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, the other side of it is, who would, the residential part, who would even want to buy any of that property? I mean, it's hanging out next to the Norsec, where all the trucks are going in and out. So it's not, in this case, it's not a very attractive residential potential lot use.
I agree
That's
with, I
just-
agree with you, and I think that, I mean, if we were looking at this property, we would want an analysis of what can really be done. How much is residential, how much is commercial? I mean, this
Well-
is, with kind of whole dumb thing that we dumped on the table now about what it is.
I mean, that's really just why I asked the question. I mean, I haven't made an opinion. I just wanted to hear more of your rationale as to why you think it would not be a good idea. That's all.
Yeah, and, and my job is to say, this is residential, it should be retained residential, there should be buffers. But, having the road coming from north, if this is Norsec going south and this is Norsec north, having a road go through a property rather than on the highway is probably an asset, but maybe give a good buffer from those residential uses. And maybe this is, maybe it should be commercial, but we don't have that tool anymore to say there's going to be a commercial on this property. They've looked at this property very recently with the whole County Road 39, and nobody recommended anything different than just basically continuing the highway business use where it
Can
is.
you
So.
help us define what part is residential? I mean, I know it's to the north, I don't believe it's on.
The map. Did I give you the map?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Lay out the map. It'll show you the zone line.
My partner didn't open it, so.
And that's my fault too. I usually put the zone line on there, but it's a quick and dirty one today.
Is that the back dotted line?
Yeah, you can see.
So-
R20.
What is it here? So here's the
Is this
road
the-
that goes through, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to restore
one of them
the,
has
what was
that.
the museum?
Okay.
Can I speak?
Please.
Yeah, trustee.
Yes, the idea is,
Wait, could you wait 1 second
Okay.
while Claire's
Very
speaking?
large piece of the unused is residential.
Correct.
Yes.
That's where I was going, thank you.
but just a point of clarification, it's not that it's unused.
Storage buildings over there.
There are storage buildings on there, and they've been there for a very long time.
On the south portion.
On
The
the
north
south-
portion, there was not, so. So that's my
No.
point.
So on the highway business, you have the museum that you're going to restore.
Right.
That building.
Thank
We're
you.
actually, we're going to put a new office building in front of that old museum.
Oh, in front of it.
We're preserving the first, I think, 15 or 20 feet of the museum building, and then creating a new building behind it because the building is in such disrepair that we can't.
And there's no historic value in it.
No, but we'll be saving the facade, so, you know, it will be, and I believe that there's elevations that have been submitted. It will look like the old museum did at one time.
And the office building, what size is that going to be?
55 square feet.
I'd have to look at the map, I don't have it.
I have it at 5560 square feet. 5,560.
And that's going to be in front of this Quonset hut style, so.
That's correct.
You're not really going to, what you're going to see is the office building from the.
Yes. Yeah, you might, I mean, there might be a fleeting glance at the building behind
Yeah,
it, but
but
it won't be
basically.
like it looks now.
And then you've got the whole rest of the property that, over the years, is just sort of helter-skelter storage buildings, right?
That's
And what are
correct.
in those buildings?
Excuse me?
What are in those buildings?
They've been used, I'm not sure if anything is in them now, but they were used historically for storing cars, auto parts, the repair of cars, that type of
In
thing.
connection with the auto museum.
Correct. So that's why we're before the ZBA, to get that storage use changed from an automotive use to, you know, the storage of clean portalavs or those large 60-gallon trash containers that are used for residences.
So basically, the Norsec business is going to move into that area.
They'll be using it for storage.
And within those buildings, internally, inside?
Yes, yeah.
And then Norsec will do what with his building, then keep it operating the same way?
Which building are we?
County Road 39,
The
the
one that
Norsec
that's
building.
existing now?
The
Yeah.
office building?
Yeah.
I believe that they intend to either sell it or lease it, and move their operations from there.
So should we just look this as an expansion of the existing Norsec use?
I don't know if it would be an expansion of existing Norsec use. They're basically
It's an
trading
expansion,
one office building for
intensification.
another.
Their office building now is not on this site, it's elsewhere on
Right.
County
Yeah,
Road
it's
30.
on
Correct.
County Road 39, separate.
Yeah.
I do think a greater analysis has to be done for this property and the neighborhood. Was it this changed to HB, this corner, when that rezoning was done? It always was HB, but on the other side of the road, it's also HB. Yeah.
I hate to say this to somebody, but maybe you need an environmental income statement.
Secret is one of the issues on that.
Yeah,
Oh, it is? Okay.
but maybe,
It's good that you're keeping up with it.
I would put number 3 first.
I can do that. I just wanted to describe it, so I'll put it as not number 1, I'll just describe it above.
And then number 4 should be 2.
We can do that. And I just want to summarize how you feel about the use itself. I mean, if comparison to the automotive repair, do you think this, do you want to speak to that, the change of use? Do you want to speak to that, or you want to be silent? It's up to you.
Well, it's, you know, we don't want to play developer.
Right.
Well, it's consistent with the use of the property just to the north, and it's probably going to net represent a improvement of the property, getting rid of a lot of old stuff and maybe even some contamination, you know, auto parts and motor oil and stuff of that nature. So I think it's a good compatible use.
I'm getting this uncomfortable feeling that there is a proposal here for the museum, and that's what seemed to have been the lead. And now there's an office building with Norsec expanding or changing.
So it's always, the request, I believe, has been a request to change from one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use. That is, this automobile repair and/or museum to storage buildings. So that's what's before the ZBA, because only the ZBA can grant that change of use. Right now, it's before you for a referral report, but you will obviously have site plan review over that.
But it's more than that, though, right? Because they are building a new building, they're rehabbing another building.
Yeah, I'm just getting this
So
uncomfortable
the whole,
Well, what exactly
Ball
are
of
they in front of
wax.
the ZBA for?
For the change to
Change of
authorize
use.
that change from one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use. And the standard in the code, I believe, is that it's a benefit to the neighborhood.
Auto parts
After
storage
the-
and dry toilet storage.
no, but we have to be clear in the ZBA referral.
Works
And empty garbage cans.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
We don't know. That's my response. I don't know.
Well, net, if you're going to sell the building on County Road 39, and you're consolidating.
That's
yeah, but that's not what's before us.
It's not
It's
what's
this
before
property.
us.
But let me just,
Yes, Joe.
the site plan was to construct a new office building on the property and to restore the
Right.
automotive museum. Both of those are in the highway business zone, and they conform with
Right.
the uses and setbacks associated with that zone. What we're looking at is existing storage buildings and just changing the use in those storage buildings.
You're looking at the R20 piece of this property.
That's correct, where there are existing storage buildings.
Is it the same ownership?
Yes.
And that's where we have the issue, is in the R20 zone A, which is residential. And even though historically it's been used for storage, should it continue that way to the extent that you want it to? There should be an environmental review because of all the automobiles parts that are there and leaking oil and transmissions. So I think that, in writing the ZBA referral, I think we have to reflect those concerns. And is it the highest and best use for this R20 parcel, which, do you know how many acres it comes to? The R20
It's on the
piece?
site plan.
No, I don't. It's, the whole entire thing is 7.4.
74, including the
higher,
front piece.
yeah.
I mean, basically what we're seeing is that Norsec is expanding their business into the S20 zone by moving their storage for things that they would have on their property now to an R20
this.
zone. So it's
correct.
it's basically where these buildings were attached to the smaller business area. Now it's going up there, part of that business, and they're actually really reclaiming the whole thing as their
Yeah.
business. So
Yeah, but it makes sense, from their point of view, it makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
But let's be
And I think that the issue, or the concern we have is that we're changing the zone for property.
Yes,
And,
even though they're saying it's pre-existing non-conforming use,
but once it's attached to the north facility to the north, to me, it changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
never coming back.
Yeah.
I agree.
But what would you realistically do other than this?
I believe
You're
we're,
not going to turn it into single-family homes.
no, but I believe we have a
No, and
referral
I
to the
already said
ZBA.
that They're not lots that I'd want to live on.
Well,
But I think
No,
we are
And
being,
this-
we're being
the smell
asked,
in Norsec is disgusting.
I think what's before us is a ZBA referral. So we have to express I just want to be clear what we have before us. What we have before us is not a determination as to what should be used up there or such. It's a referral from the ZBA, and we have to tell them what our concerns are. Our concerns, one concern I have, and following up what Gloria said, is that you have an R20 zoning area there with a non-conforming use, and and I think we could have, council can tell us, we can have a concern, or we can talk to the ZBA about whether that use should be expanded and what's happening up in that area.
well, I
And
think that's one of the recommendations.
yes.
Do we swap one non-conforming use for another non-conforming
Conforming
use?
use, correct.
Sure, you can always recommend against that.
Yeah,
Which is what
up
I
to that
think, as a
percentage.
ZBA, to speaking to Phil's concern about what we're doing here, we are doing a ZBA referral. I think that would be a concern I would like to see as one of the considerations, following up on what Gloria said, as to the R20, the usage in the R20 area.
That's key, Claire.
I don't disagree with that, but I will also say that it appears to me as if changing from one non-conforming use to another is still going to give us a net improvement.
We don't know that.
We don't know that. I don't have any testimony
We don't know
in
what
front
they're
of
going
us.
to put there.
But I think it's up to the ZBA to take it the first step. I think it's premature for us to make.
Okay, so
that
should I
kind of
keep it
referral.
simpler then?
Yep.
And say your concerns, like do one, the new one and the two, and just keep it simple like that? Should I say that?
Well, that we question an exchange of one non-conforming use to a second non-conforming use, that perhaps it's not the same.
Oh,
It's not the same use. I mean, they're storage buildings, but what's going into it?
I don't think they're just saying that they feel they meets the standard of beneficial or
Right,
whether.
so the threshold under 330-167B3 is the Board of Appeals shall have made the determination that the change will be beneficial to the general neighborhood.
Oh, so you say you question
That's
that?
the
We're
fact-
questioning that.
That's their fact finding that they have. to
Right.
do.
Right, and that's up to them, but we have to tell them what our
Right.
feelings are towards
Okay.
this
Yeah.
project.
Without an analysis,
Well,
right?
Without an
Yeah,
analysis.
or testimony. I
Right.
guess.
And then talk about SECR as
Yeah.
well, because of the environmental impact of what the prior use was.
Okay.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
Environmental assessment.
I'm going to say that, environmental impact of the
Yeah.
previous use.
Because I
Okay.
think the site plan does show that they intend to pull down one of the buildings, so there are some changes that they're suggesting in that R20 area.
Okay, I'll send this to you when it's ready. It's going to include the full pre-submission report, so it's got all your issues in there, okay? I'll adopt that, and that's the last thing, if you are ready. Everyone want to do a motion?
Well, what do we,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You're adopting the adopted revised pre-submission ZBA report with number one saying planning board highly recommends the limit. That's the paragraph there. Number two is the proposal is a type 1 action. SECR will be required to be completed prior to the ZBA decision on the project. There may be environmental impacts from the previous use on the property. And your number 3 is going to be the planning board questions, whether it meets the standard of the ZBA standard she had elicited.
Or on the R20.
Right.
Right, exactly. And then I'm going to still mention the site plan process, which
Yes,
is the number 5 at
Yes.
the bottom.
Yes, please.
Okay?
Good.
And that will be it.
So we'll move to accept that?
Yes.
Motion?
Motion by Jackie, second by Gloria. All in favor? 5 in favor, 2 absent.
Aye.
Interesting.
Thank you. And I have to get you plans to sign, which
Interesting
they've
property.
disappeared with half the plans.
You do that, I have no idea.
You don't want any of
No.
this?
Acknowledge it's mine.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll do that.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, sir.
Motion to adjourn by Phil, second by Jackie.
Adjourn.